Thank you for joining us, everyone. I'm pleased to welcome Kateryna Babkina for a discussion today about her recent experiences. My name is Stephen Norris, and I'm the Walter Havinghurst Professor of Russian History and the Director of the Havinghurst Center for Russian and Post-Soviet Studies at Miami University of Ohio. And this is part of a Creative Horizons ongoing collaboration with Arizona State University's Melikian Center and the University of South Florida's Institute on Russia. The series spotlights art and artists in the former Soviet world. This past October, Kateryna Babkina, a Ukrainian poet, prose author, columnist, screenwriter, and playwright, participated in this series. She is the author of several books of poetry, including Painkillers and Sleeping Pills, several collections of short stories, including Happy Naked People, the novel Sonia, a novel and short stories, My Grandfather Danced Better Than Everyone, as well as children's books, including Hat and Whale. In our fall discussion, we talked about the power of stories, as well as Kateryna's fiction, which often recounts the painful, traumatic histories of Ukraine. Today, however, she joins us to tell another story, this time about the war launched by Russia on February 24th of this year. When Russian armies invaded Ukraine, Kateryna fled Kyiv with her one-year-old daughter and her mother. It took her 4 days to reach Poland, and she joins us today from Wrocław. Thank you, Kateryna, for agreeing to join us. And I guess first, just tell us a little bit about your story, about what happened in those 4 days from Kyiv to Wrocław and what led you to decide to leave.
Thank you very much, Steve, for the introduction. And thank you, everyone, for being here, for listening to me, and generally for you inviting me to talk, because I think it's really important now to know what's going on in Ukraine, to talk about it, to understand what is truth and what is really happening there. So the story is like super simple, but difficult to tell. You wake up at 5 o'clock one morning when your friends calls you on the phone, and you had, such a jokingly conversation with your friend the night before that she would tell one person we both know, a journalist, told us they're gonna attack tonight. And you are like, come on, they are saying they're gonna attack already for a month. And everybody is already about to make jokes out of it, like, when they gonna attack again? And so I told her to wake me up if they will. And when I saw she's calling at 5 o'clock in the morning, I knew, what does that mean? Though I live in the city center and I didn't hear the first explosions, but by the moment we finished the conversation, I already could hear pretty well that there are bombs falling down the city, though not at my part of the city, but still. And everybody asks normally, how do you take the decision to leave or something like that? And the truth is, I didn't take the decision, like also a lot of people didn't take the decision like deliberately, okay, I go abroad. You just hear the bombs and you're looking for the bomb shelter and you find one and you unite with the people. Like my mom came over my place and my manager, Tatiana, who works with me already for 7 years. And we grabbed some stuff from the apartment, like for, to stay overnight in the bomb shelter, some food, some warm stuff for the child, mostly. That is all my belongings now is warm clothes for the child. And it's super stupid because it's already spring in Poland. So I basically don't need almost anything of that, but we went to the bomb shelter. We were hosted in a very big and comfortable, however it sounds, bomb shelter in fact, of one of my readers. I have never met this woman before, but she's a volunteer and she participated a lot in the movement who supports the victims of the same actually war, which lasted for the 8 years. It's the east of Ukraine. So I just, because there was no like proper bomb shelter close to my house. Normally you don't know, right? When you rent an apartment in the normal world, you don't think about like, is there a decent bomb shelter next to it? So apparently there was not one next to my place. So we went to visit the other bomb shelter and we spent the night there, and my child was super happy, she she fond of dogs, and there were a lot of dogs there. I think she had never seen so much dogs before. So she's 1 year old. She was happy actually about what is going on. But I was not, and nobody who's grown up was not. And then in the morning, they started bombing heavily. And one of the sons of the woman who hosted us, who is actually experienced soldier already, told us, if you want to leave, you better leave now, because later they're trying to surround the city. So later you might not have the possibility to leave. And so that was it. We sat in the car and we went to the west, to the western part of Ukraine. And I've been driving like for 20 something hours. Then we reached Ternopil, which is at the western part of Ukraine. And I went to sleep immediately because I haven't slept for more than a day. And I slept for 2 hours. And then in the morning, we heard the air alarm again, the new sirens. So I realized the same thing might happen right here, bombing again. So I just took my mother, my child, my manager, she left there in Ternopil. She's still there. We are working a lot together, like fundraising and volunteering. But I decided, I not even decided, that was just the natural movement, take my child out of there. So we headed toward the Polish border and spent there like 65 hours in the line to cross the border. That was it. And it sounds awful, and it is awful, but when you're inside of this situation, you just drive, sing the song for your child, cheer up your mom, make jokes, interact with other people on the same line on the border, and get some food from people, from volunteering, or from volunteers or local people, or get some hot drink. You don't get that when you're not given. You try to sleep, you don't sleep, you sleep when you can, and you just like, live inside of it. And it doesn't feel like such a big tragedy. However, in a few days, when you find yourself in a peaceful place, and what everyone, I suppose, had done the same, you immediately start to help other people. And I did the same, like given the information, connected somebody from Ukraine, from some doctors, somebody needs to get some medicines, somebody needs to have his parents taken out of like next to Mariupol areas or something like that. So you're spending nights and days trying to help somebody else. And also I'm still doing this a lot, like speaking about what had happened and what is going on, writing about it. But at some certain point, you are starting to realize what actually had happened to your life, what actually had happened to the lives of 40 something millions Ukrainians, both to those who have left and to those who are staying there, and to those who are not alive anymore. And this is super, super bad experience. It's like a little bit like bad trip, you can not get out of it. So I suppose I'm like at that stage at the moment, realizing what is really going on now. So each day you get the bad news that somebody got shot. Boyfriend of your friend, somebody you used to work together, somebody had lost their parents, somebody had lost contact with their sisters, brothers, and you also trying to count how many people had died, because you know that the area Russia is bombing is highly inhabited and there are no military objects. So they are basically bombing the civil object at the cities and the villages. And you are trying to imagine, like you see, okay, I see the 5 blocks destroyed, and you are trying to understand how many people are still staying there and how many people managed to survive or something like that. It doesn't look like a healthy, like emotional background or something, but comparing to other people, like staying now in Mariupol, Irpin, staying in their basements for the week without electricity, with no water, with no food. I'm in luxury conditions. And this also sounds awful, to be honest. I don't know, maybe you expected to hear something more like, I don't even know, more acceptable, but
We want your story in your own words, Kateryna. And
that's the story. Yeah.
given what you've just said too, I'm recalling when we first started talking about hosting you today, I asked you if the word refugee could be used in the title of this event, and you said you didn't want to be considered a refugee. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about why, and tell us some of the stories you've heard from the now 2.8 million people who've left Ukraine. I mean, you're a storyteller and people tell you stories. So maybe you could talk a little bit about why not refugee and what people have told you that has really struck you.
I am the refugee, and we all are. That's the fact. You simply cannot like ignore or something. But then what happens to you, you know, you are really starting to understand stuff really clearly as soon as you start naming that. So what I have discovered, that it's really important to people to preserve their previous identities, their past identities, like a teacher, a writer, mother, SMM professional, artist, designer, engineer, whatever else. Since, to be honest, now that the refugee is the only identity that had left to us, and it does not sound good, does not sound safe. It's a very vulnerable and very weak position we are all now in, like 2.8 million people gone from home, mostly with the children, mostly with no money, because it was not like rather possible to bring everything, mostly with no belongings, like with one suitcase or with one backpack. And that's a lucky situation, because somebody who had run like directly under the bombs, they have nothing at all. And so the only things you can keep is what you used to be, what you can do, what you know. Therefore, it's so important to call that people not only the refugee, this general, you know, word that generalize your story and erases totally all your previous life and all your previous identities. I know we are all refugees, we are, but we are also still writers, artists, designers, engineers, I don't know, shoemakers, whoever came from Ukraine, bread bakers, cafe workers, whatever occupation, whatever knowledge, whatever superpower people had, they would be really happy to be reminded that they are still something, they still matter, that they did not lost everything completely. And the word refugee is like erases our faces and generalizes our stories, and I don't know, makes you feel like a part of statistics and nothing more. And again, this doesn't feel really good. It's not that I'm like against to be called a refugee, because I am a refugee, we are all war refugees, but it's always cool to remember the person still preserves some other identities as well. I really hope we have still some life left. I really hope we're gonna go home. I do understand that our lives will never be as they were before already. We are kind of broken in a way that cannot be repaired, but we can still live, and hopefully we're gonna come back and rebuild our home and be prosperous and be happy, or at least try to, or at least our children will be. And for this, it's really, really important to stay who we were before, not become only a refugee, only, the point in the statistics. That's why I asked you not to call the meeting like the Ukrainian refugee, because except for being Ukrainian refugee, I'm also still a Ukrainian writer, poet, a storyteller, a journalist.
Well, you are a writer, obviously, and given your answer, it's clear that you've already started to try to process what's happening and what's happened to you, as well as so many other Ukrainians. You're now, as you mentioned, at the Wroclaw House of Literature. What sort of routine, if any, do you have? And is it possible even right now to create, to write? And if so, what are you writing and creating?
I wouldn't say I'm able to write fictional literature, but I write a lot of chronicles and columns, answer a lot of questions, like making the interviews, and also helping with the translation, because Wroclaw has accepted a lot of Ukrainian refugees, which means a lot of children. So what they are trying to do now, the Literature House of Wroclaw, they are trying to first buy some rights for the Ukrainian books for kids and publish them here in Ukrainian to spread them among the refugee children. So the children are gonna have the same books they used to have at home. Me personally, I would kill for the books of my daughter she loved and she doesn't have, because who knows if the little child has a book and the little child demands you to read the book for 1,000 times, and the little child has favorite books and favorite poems, and can listen to the favorite poem and watch the beloved images for every evening, let's say for a year. And now all the books are gone. Like our go to sleep book is gone. No, I'm lying, I brought the go to sleep book, but all the rest are gone, and there is not something you can buy in Poland or get in Poland. So what Literature House of Wroclaw is doing is they are going first to publish the Ukrainian books. So I help them to contact now the Ukrainian publishing houses, because you cannot now buy books from Ukraine. The biggest print houses that serves the different publishers are in the Eastern Ukraine mostly. So I don't think it's possible to get some books from there. First, second, it's gonna be probably faster and even cheaper, or not, I don't know, to print the same Ukrainian books with the same images here, right, in Poland, and spread it among the children. And the second thing they are doing is they are translating into Ukrainian some cool local books for kids. So also to spread among the Ukrainian refugees children. So I'm helping with the translation a lot. And yeah, I'm doing the public speeches and writing a lot of chronicles and like the publicistic things. But I'm not sure I'm able to write poetry or something like that. Though normally people say in such circumstances you would write a lot because the adrenaline and everything makes you, like productive or something. But somehow it doesn't work with me. But when you have a lot of work to do, it really helps you, because you are not thinking about what you have left behind, about your friends, somebody you used to know who are still there, who didn't manage to escape, who are not answering messages for 3 or 4 days, which does not mean anything good. And you don't think also about how your life now gonna look like, what you're gonna do, how you're gonna brought up and educate your children, how you gonna live yourself, where you gonna live, where you gonna stay and stuff. You just do your work, and this is really helpful. And in this meeting also, the Literature House of Wroclaw is helping a lot, because they give me a possibility to work and they organize a lot of activities for me. So it's not only useful because I can, as a witness, I can tell about what's going on in Ukraine, but it's also useful for me personally, because it keeps me more or less okay.
So you mentioned that you've participated in a number of discussions already. You've appeared on NPR here in America, for example, and you're answering a lot of questions. I'm curious, what questions haven't been asked yet to you that we should be asking? I mean, what are some of the experiences or stories you've heard that you really feel like should be told out there that haven't yet been asked?
I don't know, I suppose. all the important things are told, because there are a lot of people talking about that and writing about that, and this is good. But the important thing to tell is that while we are talking here, it feels awful. I don't even know why would I talk about it, but while we are talking here, they are shelling the bombing the civil quarters of different cities, Ukrainian cities, with no particular reason, like there is no military objects or something like that. They're just simply killing civil people, just erasing them, and that's it. And this is something I never believed can happen in the middle of Europe in 2022. Like, how come this is possible? How come we cannot stop this? I guess the part of my mind still does not really believe this is happening, though it's been like more than 2 weeks now. And I know it's really difficult to imagine things like that if you haven't been there, if you haven't been driving under bombs, having your child on the back seat, or what is worse, if you haven't been staying in the basement for 7 days, having bombing all the time with no water and no electricity, with your dog, your child, and I don't know, your neighbors or whoever else. It's really difficult to imagine this experience. But everyone should try, so you'll understand how impossible that is, and that it's the business of everyone, literally, because every single person should do something to stop this, should do something to help. Even the super small steps, even like super small activities matter. That's important to talk about. I have a lot of stories to tell, like stories of the people who decided not to leave, so who are staying under bombs, and they are young and they are healthy and they can drive the cars. So what they do is they are trying to get some food and medicines and some warm things, and they deliver it to people under bombings. And sometimes those people are killed. And normally when they decide to do this, they know they're gonna be killed sooner or later, because on the very sort of 5th day of war, the Russian troops shoot not from afar the car of the volunteers, two guys and two girls, bringing the dogs food to the dog shelter. And it looked very much like, for hipsters driving the BMW and having the full car of the packages with the dog food. They didn't look like any kind of military people at all. And they shoot them all to death. And this is happening every day. And I know the stories of people who are doing this, like helping others, realizing they're gonna be killed one day. I had a lot of stories of families, because normally male Ukrainians are staying there to work and to protect in this or that way. And I know the stories of broken families, because the wife with little children have to leave, otherwise the man cannot feel safe doing what is he doing. So they are now apart. I know a lot of stories of helpless people who went abroad just with no, making the decision, how I gonna deal there or here. They just were running from death. And they arrived somewhere, to Poland, to Germany, and they have no clue where they are, what language do people speak around. They don't speak any English or something like that. And they are just, it feels a little bit like in the computer game. You have to do something, but you don't know what to do. And they are trying to reach out to other people on Instagram. A lot of people ask me questions like, how do I say this or that in Poland? That really should be helpful, but somebody wrote me how, because the woman, young woman, she was hosted in the Polish family in a small city. I guess there are some elderly couple hosted her, and she asked me how to say in Polish that I cannot have milk. I'm allergic to it, because I suppose this elderly couple was trying to feed her well, so give her something with milk, sour cream, cheese, and so on. And she cannot take any lactose, so she was not able to explain this. She probably had to eat this food in order, not to be impolite, or I don't know how do these people really survive.
So you mentioned help so
I
much.
have a million stories like that, and
Right.
I mean, we cannot tell them all. We can really not tell. Oh my God, I opened now the chat, and they
Yeah,
say,
so we have several questions that I'll ask here, and they focus on initially
okay.
on help here, which you documented so eloquently in your social media posts. I'm thinking of the picture you had of the women on the side of the road feeding people along the way. But the first question in the chat is a sort of big picture question about help, and that is, it's a multi-part one. First of all, do you believe that Ukraine will win this war? And is that a belief shared by others that you've traveled with or you've met? And then related, what could be done to help? Should NATO be doing more? What should we, all listening today, be doing more to help?
Okay, the thing is, if Ukraine gonna win this war, so the situation is that either Ukraine gonna win this war, or they are not gonna leave a single Ukrainian. We are the nation that rather works in this way. I mean, until there is at least one Ukrainian, this Ukrainian gonna fight against Russia. It did not start it now. It did not start it like 8 years ago. It has a long background, this Soviet thing, and everything. So, or we gonna win, or they're not gonna be Ukraine at all. I choose to believe we're gonna win. Of course, I'm not a geopolitician, or I'm not like Nassim Taleb or whoever you would be, like Yuval Noah Harari. I have no idea what really should happen and how should we act. And it seems like, since this is happening, it seems like not only me, but nobody fucking knows, okay? Otherwise, it would be helped in a way. But I do think that the Europe and NATO and US could have done more helping us with the weapon, with the planes, sheltering our sky. On the other hand, I do realize that this is probably something Putin is waiting for, and Russia is waiting for, to start the full-scale war against everyone else. Those guys seem to love that. They enjoyed the Second World War, I suppose, and the memory of it makes still them feel glorious and prosperous. They know how to die, and they know how to keep others. And concerning what Russia is now, they have no idea how to live, how to be like normal and productive, but whatever. And so, yeah, I think there should be done more. I think that Ukraine should be helped more. But I mean, what can you do? Call your local representative, call your senator, and leave the message that you consider some action should be taken to help Ukraine. Obviously, you can send money and help donate to South Ukrainian refugees and things, and this is a lot. But I suppose some heavier actions should be taken. Though I'm not the international politician or something like that, I have no idea what to do.
So the second question is sort of a perfect pickup on this one, and that is, I think for those of us who met you first in the fall, I think we would all, if I could speak for everyone, we all would describe you as joyous, full of life, really funny, interesting, and a recent post you wrote expressed your struggles with anger, hate, forgiveness, in other words, your emotions and what you feel right now. And the question in the chat taps into that too. Do you feel angry? How do you feel at this moment? And how has that affected you as a writer?
I mean, this is for most of the Ukrainians, this had been the first experience of real hate. And we let ourselves to feel this hate. Me personally, I consider every Russian responsible to what is going on. There are a lot of millions of that. You can check out on the map. There are a lot of millions of them. 15? No. We are 40 and they 150 millions people, which is a lot. And it's not that they are like brainwashed. They are brainwashed by choice. And this is a crime. It reminds me a lot when somebody talks about like usual Russians who don't do this and who didn't know what is going on because they were brainwashed by Russian medias. Fuck them, they are watching the Ukrainian bloggers who do yoga, cooking stuff, something for children, and those bloggers in between of what they spread, they're Russian speaking, though a lot of Russians don't speak any other language except for Russian, but they all those bloggers on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, whatever else, they speak out on their position concerning the war of Russia against Ukraine, which lasts for the 8 years. And those people do not hear. In a way, they are like, okay, then the next recipe, please. That is how it works. So they are guilty, and I do hate them. And obviously, I do hate those people because, I mean, international medias and people would always generalize and say Putin does this, Putin does that. It was not Putin who shot the BMW with the volunteers with the fucking dog meals. It was not Putin who is pressing the button to bomb the civil blocks where you can like see with your eyes there are no military objects, and there is not Putin like shooting the families trying to escape Irpin or Bucha when they announced that the green corridor gonna be given and they're gonna be the hours of silence so people can evacuate, and then people start running and they shoot them. This is not Putin. Not Putin is raping, not Putin is robbing houses, not Putin is killing civilians in Ukraine, not Putin is shooting children. So I do hate them. And we all do, every Ukrainian now, I suppose. And probably that's the first time I feel that this anger and this hate is the right thing to feel. Normally, when you're super angry, when you hate something, when you feel guilty for that, right? This is not good. We are told not to hate. We are told not to produce anger. This is the case when the anger is the right thing to feel. How that's gonna influence me as a writer, I have no idea, but it is like that.
There are two questions in the chat that are related that pick up on the story you told of how you left and why you left, and they're both connected to who you're communicating with back in Ukraine. How do you communicate with someone back in Ukraine? Do you know people in Kyiv who are staying there and fighting? And if so, are they talking to you, or is it even possible to talk to them?
Thank you very much for your questions, Romana, and I'm super happy you are here. Well, the father of my child is now in the military, like protecting Kyiv. We are divorced, but of course we are in contact since we have the common child. And yes, every day I make a video calls with him so daughter can see him, because she's running around with my phone saying papa, papa. And he's like wearing the gun, and sometimes the shooting starts or the bombing starts and he's like, okay, I'll call you back later. And I do have also some friends who are staying there and fighting. And I do have someone I knew who's killed there already. And I do know a lot of people like young ladies like me, mostly those who don't have children, let's say, so they are responsible only for themselves, who have chosen to stay. So they volunteer, they cook, they help, they drive the cars, delivering scenes and everything. And you know, we have this joke now. We have a lot of jokes actually about what is going on. We are a very joking nation. As you can see, we will have the president, like the comedy man. And we have a lot of jokes now about what is going on. And one of them is that now when you text somebody, how are you? This means I love you. So you're sending and sending those how are yous during the day to the people who had left there. And this kind of mean I love you. In a way, I do care, at least. This definitely means I do care for you. And the awful thing that you know they are there and you are safe and you have electricity and water and nice playground and the cool park and the lovely streets of Wrocław, and somebody sends you flowers to the office, and at the same time the people you know and love, your friends, are staying in Kyiv, like freezing, having no food and waiting for is their house be bombed next or the neighboring one? And you cannot help, though we all help in a way. It's a war that literally every Ukrainian is participating. Somebody is writing, translating. A lot of people are now involved in the humanitarian help traffic, like working on this logistic stuff. My friends are riding around the Europe, buying the proper car for the military, like 4x4, and I'm actually helping them a little bit to fundraise. And I help a lot also Ukrainian women who had come here to Poland or to other countries. And I work for the organization. I used to work as before the war, I used to work as a chief communication officer for the chief communication officer, I guess, for the charity platform called Kind Challenge. What we used to do is we invented different challenges, mostly sport challenges, but not only, to involve Ukrainians into charity, to make them donate with good feelings, to make people understand that everybody can help and every donate or every help matters. And what was also cool about our company, that we used to have the biggest database of charitable foundations and NGOs, which we checked and audit, and they were checked by the legal payment system. So those were the places, if you donate there, you definitely know where the money go and what they do, and you can see the result of their help. So we had this base of more than 100 foundations and NGOs. And now after the first week of the war, we gathered again, mostly online, because somebody is in Berlin, somebody is still in Kyiv, somebody is in Ternopil, Lviv, somebody is here in Wrocław, and we keep working together. What we did is we updated the needs of those foundations, because, you know, now everybody is normally supporting the army, the military people, but surprise, there is still cancer, there is still AIDS, there are still people who don't, like homeless people, there are still animals, again, children with no parents, and they still need a lot of everything, and everybody is now switched into helping the army. So we created some information channels, like on Telegram. You can find them easily. It's called Kind Channel Help Ukraine, or also our webpage Kind Challenge, where we provide this verified and trusted organizations to donate, to help. And we also created these channels in 5 languages, so people can really read and choose different needs, not only helping Ukrainian army, but helping the children, helping sick people, helping old people, helping animals, helping some research, helping like psychological organizations, helping something against the human traffic, which is the case now again, and stuff like that. So that's also what we do. But every single Ukrainian, I tell you, if the person is not taken the birth of somebody in the bomb shelter, or not staying with the machine gun against the Russian tanks, then the person is translating, writing, cooking, delivering, doing the logistics, fundraising, whatever else, helping the refugees, bringing somebody's children, teaching in the schools for refugees and stuff like that. Every single Ukrainian is involved into that. So that's again coming back to the question, if we gonna win. If we're not gonna win, that not gonna live any one of us anymore.
So Kateryna, you mentioned you haven't been able to write poetry since leaving, understandably, but you did write a wonderful poem in 2014 about the war that has broke out then that is still ongoing. And if you could, I'd like for you to read it in Ukrainian. And then I had my colleague, Melikian, who's now the director of the Contemporary Ukrainian Institute at the Harvard Ukrainian Institute, translate it. So I'll follow it as a way of closing today. If you could read this poem, and then I'll follow by reading it in English.
Yeah, it actually feels a little bit scary, because what I have written in 2014, there are a lot of texts like that. Seems to be so much about what is going on now, and I don't have this magical thinking, and I don't remember people can feel what's gonna happen in the time. But now when I really like review those poetry, it's scary a little bit. But on the other hand, when I post them or when I record them and send them to radios or something, it really helps people to cope, especially those people who have experienced exactly what I'm writing about and who don't know how to deal with that because they don't have a proper vocabulary to talk about that even to themselves. It was my big problem at the first days of war, that I was trying to, speak publicly on what is happening, telling my stories, like still being there on the Ukrainian-Polish border with thousands and 10,000 maybe refugees in the line in the cars. I didn't have the proper vocabulary to talk about that. And I was like, is that my shitty English or is that something else? And later I realized that are the things you don't have the vocabulary to talk about even in your native language. You just don't have the right words to talk about that. So sometimes giving people the right words help them to cope with what's going on. В голові у дівчинки відблиски золоті. На зап'ястях дзвіночки, метелики в животі на подвір'ї, великі вологі багряні квіти. В снах у неї щоночі закінчується війна. І коли зникає пострілів зла луна, всі до одного живі повертаються звідти. За вікном у дівчинки розйобаний гастроном, і тумани зранку, ніби розведеним молоком, заливають вирвані з коренем качелі і паркомати. В кишенях у неї всі сусідські ключі і дрібні монети, які розсипаються дзвінячі, коли вона темними сходами у підвал спускається спати. Що її тримає? Стрічечки, ланцюжки, фотографії, на котрих ще живі і молоді батьки, глибина коріння, пам'ять минулого теплу шкіру, і голуби, ніби янголи, злітаються до її вікна і старанно береже її все те, що береже вона, все, у що вона так безнадійно вірить.
And here's the translation by Melikian. The girl has golden reflections in her head, bells on her wrists, butterflies in her stomach, large flowers damp with crimson in the courtyard. She dreams every night the war is over, and when the evil echo of the shooting ceases, one and all of the living return from there. Outside the girl's window, a shop lies in ruins as the morning fog pours like watery milk around uprooted swing sets and parking meters. The neighbor's keys all jingle in her pockets, and small coins spill when she descends the dark stairs to the basement to sleep. What sustains her, ribbons and chains, pictures of parents still young, still living, the roots of memory running deep in the warm skin of the past. Doves, like angels, flock to her window. Everything that she cares for her attentively, all these things that she believes in so hopelessly. Kateryna, thank you so much for joining us today. I think we've all learned a lot from you. We deeply appreciate your willingness to tell your story and talk to us about everything that's going on right now. We hope, of course, like the girl in your poem, that the shooting will cease sometime soon and she can return home.
Thank you very much for your support and for listening to me and for being with us during this time. Thank you very much.